Ever wondered if aliens might already be living among us, hidden in the depths of our own oceans? Well, buckle up because we're about to dive deep and introduce you to an oceanic oddball that might just make you believe in extraterrestrial life. Meet the giant isopod, the sea creature that's been trending on the weird scale since the dawn of time. Now when we say giant, we aren't kidding. These critters can grow up to 2.5 feet long. That's like a fully grown dachshund but with way more legs and a serious lack of fur. Imagine meeting one of these sea sausages on a midnight swim. It's no wonder they've been coined as the cockroaches of the sea. But let's be fair, they're probably more like the misunderstood hipsters of the ocean, going against the mainstream fishy flow. Speaking of being different, these giant isopods seem like they've been practicing social distancing long before it was cool, or necessary. They live in the deep, dark depths of the ocean, some 2,000 meters below sea level. That's deeper than your average submarine can go. Talk about being a recluse. But it's not just their size and living quarters that make these creatures seem alien. They have some pretty quirky survival tactics too. Take their eating habits, for example. These guys could give any fasting guru a run for their money. They can go without food for up to 5 years. Yes, you heard that right, 5 years. And you thought your diet was intense. Then there's their armor-like exoskeleton, which is eerily reminiscent of a certain cinematic alien species. But we won't name names. Let's just say, it's enough to make you wonder if they're not just oversized bugs but perhaps otherworldly creatures in disguise. So are these deep-sea dwellers just oversized bugs, or could they be extraterrestrial explorers in disguise? Well, hold on to your diving helmets because we're about to plunge into the evidence in the next scene. Let's dive deeper into the evidence that suggests these creatures might not be of this world. First off, let's talk about the giant isopod's anatomy. These fellas are essentially armored tanks of the deep sea. They can withstand extreme pressures that would make a submarine cringe. That's like being squished by 50 elephants and still being able to carry on with your day. Talk about a tough cookie. And let's not forget about their ability to handle temperatures colder than a snowman's handshake. These guys are comfortable in waters as cold as 4 degrees Celsius. That's just a smidgen above freezing. If these isopods are indeed aliens, they've certainly got their spacesuits sorted out. Now you may be thinking, well, that's all well and good, but lots of creatures survive in extreme conditions. And you'd be right. But here's where it gets interesting. These giant isopods can live to be over 100 years old. 100 years. That's longer than the lifespan of some turtles, and those guys are known to be the Methuselahs of the animal kingdom. And here's another curveball for you. These isopods can go without food for over 4 years. 4 years, I mean, I get cranky if I miss lunch. These guys can go without a snack for longer than most high school relationships last. So let's recap. We have a creature that can survive crushing pressures, freezing temperatures, can live to be older than your grandma, and can go without food for longer than it takes to get a college degree. If that's not alien, I don't know what is. But wait, there's more. These isopods have compound eyes, which means they have hundreds of tiny lenses that allow them to see in all directions at once. It's like they have built-in panoramic vision. If that's not alien tech, I don't know what is. But what about their behavior? Does it suggest something otherworldly? From a human perspective, the giant isopod's behavior seems, well, alien. And when we say alien, we're not talking about your quirky neighbor who collects garden gnomes. No, we're talking about the kind of alien that would make ET dial home faster than you can say extraterrestrial. Let's dive into the deep end, shall we? No, seriously, that's where you'll find these guys, scuttling around the ocean floor up to 7,000 feet below the surface. Their idea of a Sunday brunch? Dead whales, fish, and squid? Yum. It seems their taste buds have a preference for the more, shall we say, mature flavors. But here's where things get interesting. If you thought your teenager could eat, wait till you hear about these guys. A giant isopod can scarf down a large meal in one sitting and then go without food for up to 5 years. Yes, you heard right, 5 years. That's the equivalent of your teenager saying, "Thanks for the pizza, Mom, see you at dinner ... in the year 2029. And it's not just the isopod's ability to survive without food that's fascinating, it's the way they do it. These bottom dwellers have a metabolic rate so low it would make a sloth look like an Olympic sprinter. Basically, they can chill out on the ocean floor for years, living off their stored fat reserves until the next meal comes along. Talk about the ultimate couch potato. But maybe we're being a bit harsh. After all, life in the deep sea isn't easy. It's dark, it's cold, and food is scarce. Maybe the giant isopod's behavior isn't so much alien as it is a masterclass in survival. They're the Bear Grylls of the deep sea, if Bear Grylls looked like a giant underwater woodlouse, that is. So we've got a creature that looks like an alien and acts like an alien. But is there any scientific basis to this theory? Science might not have all the answers, but it can certainly give us some clues. Alright folks, let's dive into the deep end of the pool where the big scientific brains swim around. The question we've all been pondering: are giant isopods aliens? Well, unless they're hiding tiny UFOs in their shells, science suggests these creatures are very much Earthlings. Now don't get me wrong, I'd be the first to welcome our new crustacean overlords if they arrived from another galaxy. But alas, the facts seem to point in another direction. You see, giant isopods share a lot of characteristics with their smaller terrestrial cousins, the humble woodlouse. That's right, that little bug you flipped over with a stick when you were a kid. It's basically a mini, land-loving version of the giant isopod. And as much as I'd love to imagine these deep-sea critters as masterminds of an interstellar plot, there's just no scientific evidence to support that. We've looked at their DNA, their behavior, their physical traits, and it all screams Earthling louder than a Beatles fan in the 60s. Now I know what you're thinking, but what about all those alien-like features, the huge size, the weird eyes, the armor-like exoskeleton? Well, those can all be explained by the deep-sea environment they live in. You see, down there in the depths, it's survival of the freakiest. The more bizarre you look, the better your chances of not ending up as someone else's midnight snack. So, while it's fun to imagine that these oversized sea bugs are alien invaders, the science tells us they're more like distant relatives. And let's be honest, we've all got that one relative who's a little bit out there. In this case, it's your second cousin twice removed, who decided to move into the deep sea and grow to the size of a football. So, are they aliens or not? Let's wrap up our investigation. So, have we uncovered a deep-sea alien invasion, or is this all just a bit of fun? I hear you ponder. Well, let's take a moment to dive back into the deep end of our theory and make a splash with a summary of what we've discussed. We began our journey navigating the murky depths of the ocean, shedding some light on the mysterious and somewhat eerie giant isopod. With its exoskeleton that could give any sci-fi alien a run for its money, and behavior that seems straight out of a science fiction novel, it's no wonder we've been speculating about its extraterrestrial origins. Then, we plunged into the evidence, or rather the lack thereof. We found no spaceship wreckage, no alien tech, not even a single sign of an intergalactic passport. A real bummer, I know. But we did discover that the giant isopod's so-called alien behavior, like its ability to survive without food for up to 5 years, is actually quite common in the deep sea. Talk about being a creature of habit. Next up, we dived into the science behind our alien wannabe. We learned that while the giant isopod's appearance and behavior might seem out of this world, there's no scientific evidence to support our theory. It's all just earthly evolution doing its thing, folks. So, as we resurface from our deep-sea journey, it seems our giant isopod friends are not aliens, but just another example of how weird and wonderful life on Earth can be. Who would have thought? Our search for alien life has brought us right back home, proving that sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. And remember, even though the giant isopod might not be an alien, it's still a master of social distancing. With their solitary lifestyle in the deep sea, they've been practicing it long before it was cool. So, the next time you're feeling a bit alienated, spare a thought for the giant isopod, the true masters of social distancing.